So we will continue our discussion on turbine blading. Okay. I hope you can see the screen. Can somebody confirm?
Yes, sir.
Today my situation is not. All right. Let us continue. So we have already discussed about nozzles, so we will go into turbine blading. So we have started discussing in the previous class yesterday the basics of turbine blading. So if you consider a typical stage, let me just open the diagram again. Turbines. By the way, your syllabus for final exam will contain only the part which is taught after the means which was there from after the mid-sem syllabus. So starting from fuels and combustion. So in the notes it is starting from page 60. So all the questions for the final exam will be from the part which starts from page 60 onwards, whatever up to whatever we discuss. Okay, next week. So and you can expect problems, longish problems, long problems, and a few short questions. Okay, 60 marks. So anyway, let us come back to our discussion. And what we have seen was that typically a single stage will have a set of nozzles or stator blades. It is also known as stator blades, followed by a set of rotating blades, which are known as rotor blades. Okay, so the flow comes in through the nozzle at a subsonic velocity, then it is accelerated through the converging diverging passage to supersonic velocity. Then it enters, if the angle is such that the flow leaves at a certain angle, which is designed such that it enters the rotor blades smoothly at its edges. Okay, the flow enters the rotor blades smoothly at the edges. Keeping in mind that the rotor blades are rotating, so you have to consider the relative velocity when you have to consider that the angle of the flow is entering smoothly through the rotor blades. Okay. So then it moves around the rotor blade passage and goes out from the other direction. Okay. So this change in the direction of the flow results in change in momentum in the direction of rotation, and this change of momentum transfers energy to the blades. So basically the flow comes like this and it goes out from the other direction and pushes the blade, okay, in the forward direction, and which manifests itself as rotation of the rotor blades. Okay, each of the blades gets pushed along. So all the total number of blades, whatever number of blades are present, all of them get pushed around on the shaft, and the shaft rotates as a result. So these are mounted on the shaft, and the stator blades are mounted on the casing, and hence they don't move with the shaft. Okay, so this is the idea. So with this in mind, you have to think about the flow velocities when we consider the flow velocities. Okay, so I will just repeat once what we had discussed in yesterday's class, that let me show you another diagram which is more helpful. So there are multiple nozzles like this. Okay, multiple nozzles like this. Say another nozzle is here. Okay, so you have to bear with my poor drawing skills. So similarly, another nozzle is here. So multiple nozzles are arranged around the periphery, around in a circular pattern, and each of the nozzles, uh, through each of the nozzles, there is flow of the steam, and the steam is accelerated to a supersonic speed. and then they impinge on the moving blades. So in this 2D plane, the moving blades look like this. So this is just, we are looking at a cut section of the moving blade. The actual blades are like this. So if you take a cut section somewhere around the middle part, okay, so between the root, which is the bottom part, and the tip, which is the top part. So in the middle part, we call it the mean radius. So at the mean radius, if you take a cut section, it will look like this on the plane of the paper. Okay, so the blades are coming from inside the plane of the paper, going through the plane of the paper, and going again back inside the plane of the paper. You have to imagine that how they are rotating basically. So the axis of rotation or the shaft is in this direction. Okay, so this will be the shaft. So this will be the axial direction, and this will be the tangential or rotating direction, which we call as wheel direction, wheel component of velocity, which will come to that. Okay, the axis will be like this along the x direction of the paper. So the flow is occurring like this. So anyway, so the flow comes in from this angle, okay, through the nozzle at a certain angle, and it enters smoothly the moving blades and goes out at a certain angle like this. So if we draw this velocities with respect to the moving blade, it looks like this. So I have rotated the blade structure here. Okay, this is how we draw generally. So now this is the direction of the moving blades, VB. So you can see the VB. VB is the blade velocity. VB is known as the blade velocity, the direction in which the blades are moving with a certain velocity. Can anyone say what will be the velocity VB? How can the velocity VB be calculated? We will do it later, but intuitively, can you say how can we calculate the velocity VB? Based on the rotational speed, can we calculate? What will be the equation if we want to calculate based on the rotational speed? If n is the RPM, so n is the RPM of for rotation of the shaft or the rotor. So what will be the value of VB in terms of n?
So into the radius of the turbine.
It will depend on the radius. So if we consider the mean radius, correct, it will depend on the radius. If we consider the mean radius, so mean height of the turbine blade. So turbine blade is like this, right? Say you have a blade which has a certain length. Okay, so this is the root section, and say this is the center of the shaft. So this is say radius of the root. Okay, my drawing skill is poor with this mouse, and this is the radius of the tip. Okay, so in between you have a mean radius. Okay, so let us, if we call this as Rm, mean radius Rm, so and mean diameter dm, then the blade velocity Vb is pi dm into n by 60. Okay, so pi into dm into n, if n is rpm. If n is in rps, then it is pi dm into n only. So rotational speed into, so n into pi is the rotational speed omega into the diameter dm. Okay, this will give us Vb. So anyway, so the blade is moving in this direction with a velocity Vb, and the flow comes in from the nozzle with a velocity V1 at an angle alpha 1. So if you are sitting outside, you will see the absolute velocity V1 and absolute angle alpha 1. Okay, so V1 is known as absolute velocity at inlet, alpha 1 is known as the inlet flow angle. However, if you are sitting on the blade, so with respect to the moving blade, if you are excuse me, so with respect to the moving blade, the velocity looks different, right? So because the blade itself is moving, the relative velocity with respect to the moving blade is given by VR1. Okay, and this angle with the horizontal direction VB direction is beta 1. So beta 1 is known as inlet blade angle and VR1 is known as relative velocity at inlet. Okay. So the vector addition of VR1 with VB gives us V1. So VR1 plus VB is equal to V1. Okay. Vector addition of VR1 plus VB is equal to V1. So this horizontal line is VB. I will come back to this diagram. Let us keep this open. Okay, so this is VR1 and this is V1. Sorry, VB. So this, if we add these two, we get V1. So similarly, at the outlet, the relative velocity is VR2, which is aligned with the blade angle, again angle of the blade, which is called as outlet blade angle beta 2. Okay, and the relative velocity is called as relative velocity at exit VR2. Okay, and the blade velocity is still VB. Anywhere on the blade velocity is VB, because at that plane the height of the blade is dm, like mean diameter, and RPM is n for the entire blade. Obviously, RPM cannot change for a blade. So the blade velocity VB remains same anywhere on the blade. So the VB is still same. So VR2 plus VB vector addition gives us the absolute velocity V2. Okay, so VR2 is the relative velocity at the exit, V2 is the absolute velocity at the exit, and alpha 2 is the outlet flow angle and beta 2 is the outlet blade angle. Okay, so these two triangles are known as inlet velocity triangle and outlet or exit velocity triangle. Okay, so at the outlet you have this VR2 plus VB is equal to V2. Okay, vector addition V2. So anyway, so we have to keep these angles in mind. Beta 1, beta 2 are the relative angles or blade angles. Alpha 1, alpha 2 are the absolute angles from absolute reference frame, which are known as flow angles. Similarly, V1, V2 are the absolute velocities, VR1, VR2 are the relative velocities. Okay. So because VB is same, we can superimpose these two triangles on the same axis with VB as the same VB. Okay, because this length is same on both for both the triangles, and in doing so we can actually do the calculations much easily. Okay, so we will superimpose the two triangles and create a single set of velocity triangle, which is known as the velocity. Basically, it's known as the velocity triangle for the blade, and based on that, we can do a lot of calculation. We can find out what is the force in the axial direction, what is the force in the tangential direction, what is the power generated. Everything can be calculated. Okay. So if there is no change in passage area, between the blades, this relative velocity, the flow comes at a velocity VR1. It also goes out at the same velocity VR2. Okay, if there is no change in passage area and no change in if there are no frictional losses, so whatever is the inlet velocity, the flow just moves around the blade smoothly and goes out at the same velocity. But in real life, what happens is that there are some frictional losses, so this VR2 is slightly smaller than VR1. Okay, so if VR1 is say 100 meter per second, VR2 may be 95 meter per second. So this ratio of VR2 by VR1 is given by something which is known as blade friction factor. I will come to that in a minute. Okay, but keep in mind that without any friction, VR2 should be equal to VR1, and the way the blades are designed, generally it is designed keeping beta 2 is equal to beta 1. Okay, so that they are symmetric in nature, so it's easier to manufacture them. So beta 2 is equal to beta 1, and without friction VR2 is equal to VR1. With friction VR2 is slightly less than VR1. Okay. So I have summarized a few of the things that we have discussed till now. Large number of blades are mounted over a disc mounted on the shaft for each stage. Okay. This I have just summarized so that when you read later you can recall the information. The change of momentum of the impinging steam coming from the nozzles or fixed blades. Nozzles are also called as fixed blades in case the passage area does not change. Okay, we will come to that also later. So impingement of steam from the nozzle creates a force on the blades. As a result, the blades move, resulting in rotation of the disc and the shaft. As one blade moves away, so as one of the blades moves away, like this blade is moving away, another blade comes in its place. Okay, another blade comes into its place, and the steam from the nozzle, fixed nozzle, hits the next blade. Okay, so one blade moves away, second blade comes, that also moves away, another blade comes. So because of rotation, blades are moving away one after another, and the steam from the nozzle is hitting a succession of blades. Okay. Now the assumption that we have to take for this kind of calculation is that blade has a linear motion during the small time when the fluid is impinging on it. Okay. In actual case, there is a 3D motion. It's not linear. The blade is coming from inside the plane of your monitor or inside the plane of the paper. Then it comes out of the plane of the paper. Again, it goes back inside the plane of the paper. You have to imagine this. So the blade is coming from inside the plane of the paper, comes out of the plane of the paper, means it becomes a straight line, and again goes back inside the plane of the paper. But we will assume that for the small duration, when we are calculating the forces on the blade is just moving horizontally, like what I have drawn here. Okay, this is the assumption that we need to take. So with this in mind, we can then do all the calculations once we couple these two velocity diagrams together. Okay, so by coupling these two velocity diagrams together, it looks something like what I have drawn here. Okay, this is very important, this diagram. You should be able to draw this kind of diagrams for any problems involving turbine blades. Okay, because once you can draw this diagram, calculation becomes very easy. Okay, so you should know what will be the angles alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2, and what should be the velocities v1, v2, vr1, vr2, and vb. Okay, and then all the calculations becomes easy. So the inlet velocity triangle, this one, okay, this one is drawn here. So we have vr1 at an angle beta 1. You can compare with this diagram. vr1 at an angle beta 1 plus vb is equal to v1. Okay, so vr1 plus vb is equal to v1. v1 is at an angle alpha 1, as you can see here. Okay, v1 is at an angle alpha 1 and vr1 is at an angle beta 1. Similarly, the outlet velocity triangle, again assuming common vb, we have vr2, so this line vr2 at an angle beta 2 as shown here or here, plus vb is equal to v2, which is at an angle alpha 2, as you can see here. v2 is at an angle alpha 2. So same thing is drawn here. v2 is at an angle alpha 2. Only thing is that we have taken the vb to be common. Okay, because vb remains same. So we have put both the triangle, like we have superimposed both the velocity triangles with a common vb. Okay. So with this now, what is the direction of movement of the blades? The direction of the movement of the blades is the direction of vb. Okay, so this is the direction. So the direction of vb, this direction is the direction of the movement of the blade. Okay, this direction is known as wheel direction. Okay, this term WHIRL, wheel direction. The direction of rotation, wheel means rotation, so direction of rotation. Okay, and or you can also call this the tangential direction. Okay, wheel direction is also known as tangential direction, but typically the term wheel direction is used, wheel component. The axial direction, the axis of this shaft is in this direction, so the axis is somewhere placed like this. Okay, vertically. So with this, with respect to this axis, the rotation is occurring, right? Or you can, if in 3D it is like this type of rotation is occurring. So the axis is vertical. So the vertical direction is known as the axial direction. The shaft is aligned along the vertical direction. Okay, in the plane of the paper. You can imagine that the shaft is aligned in the plane of the paper, and the rotation occurs from inside the plane of the paper, comes out of the paper, and again goes back inside. Okay. So for the short duration, here the velocity is vb, what we have drawn here. I hope this is clear. Okay. So the horizontal direction is wheel direction, the vertical direction is axial direction. Okay. So the axial component, so now we can look at the different components of velocity, what is happening in the blades. So the actual flow is coming at a velocity v1 with angle alpha 1, and is the flow is changing direction from alpha 1 to angle alpha 2 as drawn here, and its velocity is changing from v1 to v2. The absolute velocity is changing from v1 to v2. Okay, so it goes out with a velocity v2. So the change in the wheel component of velocity, change in the component of velocity in the direction of rotation is delta VW, okay, which is given by VW1, which is from this point to this point, plus VW2, which is from this point to this point, okay. So let me just keep this open, okay. So this part plus this part, okay, this is the total change in the wheel component of velocity in the wheel direction, okay. If we take a look at the relative velocity, inlet relative velocity was VR1 at an angle beta 1 and outlet relative velocity is VR2 at an angle beta 2. If the frictional losses are negligible, VR1 is equal to VR2 typically, and beta 1 is equal to beta 2 for like by design, okay. But in real life, what happens is that the ratio between VR2 and VR1 is given by a friction factor Kb, blade friction factor Kb, which is slightly less than 1. So VR2 is slightly less than 1, okay. So later on during our calculation, we will take friction factor to be 1, ignoring the friction. Friction factor 1 means there is no friction, okay. And then we will see that, or we will assume that VR2 is equal to VR1. But at the beginning, we will take the general case that VR2 is slightly less than VR1. Okay. So again, if you consider the wheel component for the relative velocities also, it will be the same, right? So ultimately, the change in wheel component remains same. So change in wheel component for the relative velocity is also delta VW. Okay. What is the change in the axial component of velocity? Initial axial component of velocity was VA1. Okay, in this direction. If you consider the vertical component, it was VA1. The final axial component of velocity is VA2. Okay. So if the relative velocities are equal, VR1 is equal to VR2 and angles beta 1 and beta 2 are equal, if the blade is symmetric, what will be the change in axial component of velocity? What will be the value of VA1 minus VA2?
Zero, sir.
It will be 0. If there are no frictional losses, good, it will be 0. There are no frictional losses and the blade is symmetric, then there is no axial component change in axial component of velocity. Whatever is the inlet axial component of velocity, that is equal to the axial outlet component of velocity. This actually is important, as we will discuss later on. I will come back to this. Okay, so at this point, just bear in mind that if there are no friction and if beta 1 is equal to beta 2, VA1 is equal to VA2. Okay. So then let us go through a few definitions. Energy loss due to blade friction per unit masses. So initial kinetic energy, relative kinetic energy in the blades is half VR1 square. Please switch off your mic. Please switch off your mic. So the initial kinetic energy is VR1 square by 2 and the final kinetic energy is VR2 square by 2. These are the relative kinetic energies. Okay. Kinetic energies can be relative. Kinetic energies are not absolute terms because velocity is a relative phenomena. Sometimes people get confused. They think that kinetic energy is an absolute quantity. Okay. Kinetic energy can change based on the frame of reference. So say I am seeing a bus which is moving at, or car which is moving at a certain velocity. From my point of view, the velocity of the car may be 10 meter per second and it will have certain kinetic energy. Okay, half into mass of the car into 10 square. For the person who is sitting on the car, the velocity is 0. For him, the kinetic energy is 0. Okay, relative to that person, the kinetic energy is 0. So kinetic energy is a quantity which can change based on the frame of reference. So it is not an absolute quantity. Okay, you have to be careful while considering kinetic energy. So in this case, the relative kinetic energy, so for a person who is sitting on the blade, for him the inlet kinetic energy is VR square 1, like VR1 square by 2, and the outlet kinetic energy is VR2 square by 2. Okay. And if there is no frictional losses, the inlet and outlet kinetic energy is same from the point of view of the blade. Okay. Whatever is the inlet kinetic energy, same is the outlet kinetic energy. It means that we are not converting any enthalpy into kinetic energy within the moving blades. Okay, whatever is the kinetic energy coming from the nozzles, that same kinetic energy is being used up for generating the work. We are not generating any new kinetic energy in the moving blades. Okay. So anyway, if there are frictional losses, then the kinetic energy is decreased. If frictional losses are ignored, Kb is equal to 1 and Vr2 is equal to Vr1, as I have already discussed. And typically, blades are manufactured or designed such that they are symmetric, which is because of then repeating the stages is easier and manufacturing is easier. So beta 2 is equal to beta 1 in this diagram. Okay. So now we are interested in finding what is the work done by a single stage, right? Ultimately, we want to find out what is the work done by a single stage, because ultimately turbines are used for generating work. So main purpose of doing all this calculation is to find out what is the work done. Okay. So we want to relate this work. Previously, we were relating the work only with the enthalpy. Now we want to relate the work with actual velocities. Okay, V1, V2, VR1, VR2. So this type of velocities. So why do we want to relate this? Because then we know what should be the design of the blades. So for what angle alpha 1, what should be the angle alpha 1, alpha 2, or what should be the angle blade angles beta 1 and beta 2, so that we can generate a certain amount of work. Okay. So to design the blades, we want to relate the blade angles beta 1, beta 2 and velocities V1, V2, VR1, VR2 to the work output. Okay. To do this, we have to consider how the work is generated. So work is generated because there is a change in momentum along the direction of the rotation, along the wheel direction, tangential direction. And what is the change in momentum? It is mass flow rate into change in the velocity in the wheel direction. Change in velocity in the wheel direction is delta VW. Okay. So change in wheel component of velocity is delta VW. So we can calculate that as VW1, this part, plus VW2. Okay, this part. So VW1 from this triangle, so we'll keep this triangle open here. VW1 is equal to V1 cos alpha 1. Okay, this length. So V1 cos alpha 1. Okay, this is VW1 and VW2 is, by the way we have drawn the angles, this is V2 cos alpha 2. Okay, this part. So total delta VW is V1 cos alpha 1 plus V2 cos alpha 2. Okay. So now V2 cos alpha 2, this length here, is equal to this entire length. Okay, this entire length minus VB, right? So this V2 cos alpha 2 is equal to this entire length minus VB. So what is this entire length? This is VR2 cos beta 2. Okay. So V2 cos alpha 2 is equal to VR2 cos beta 2 minus VB. Okay. So now VR2 is KB into VR1 by this definition. Okay. VR2 is equal to KB into VR1 and beta 2 is equal to beta 1. So we can write VR2 cos beta 2 as KB VR1 cos beta 1. Okay. So delta VW is equal to V1 cos alpha 1 plus KB VR1 cos beta 1 minus VB. Or now what is VR1 cos beta 1? Okay. What is the length VR1 cos beta 1? VR1 cos beta 1 is this length, right, up to this portion. So this VR1 cos beta 1 is this length. So this is equal to V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. Okay. So up to this length minus VB. V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. So we can replace VR1 cos beta 1 by V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. So because it is multiplied by KB, we have KB into V1 cos alpha 1 minus KB VB. One VB was already there. Another minus KB VB has come. So now by rearranging, you get delta VW is equal to 1 plus KB V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. Okay. If KB is equal to 1, if there is no friction, means for the simplified case, delta VW is 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. Okay. So this is the important relation. Okay, we should be able to derive. This is written in terms of V1, alpha 1 and VB, and there is a reason for that. I am not writing in terms of VR1, VR2, V2 or alpha 2. Okay, we are writing in terms of V1, alpha 1 and VB. What is the reason for that? Vb is the blade velocity. Okay, so Vb does not depend on the flow. Vb depends on how fast the rotation is occurring. Okay, so Vb is independent of the flow process. So Vb is a design parameter. Okay, similarly V1 and alpha 1. What is V1 and alpha 1? V1 is the velocity coming from the nozzle. Okay, so V1 will depend on how much is the acceleration of the fluid in the nozzle. Okay, and alpha 1 depends on the nozzle angle. Alpha 1 is also known as nozzle angle. Okay, nozzle outlet angle. It is the flow inlet angle, which is the nozzle outlet angle. So this V1 and alpha 1 are values which are independent of the blade design. Okay, which can be calculated based on blade design to optimize, but these are nozzle properties. Okay, so that's why we are writing in terms of V1 alpha 1 and Vb. Okay, so although this V1 and alpha 1 can be varied to optimize delta Vw, and which we will do, we will calculate how what is the optimum relation between V1 and Vb, we will see, but these are properties of the nozzle. Okay, anyway, so this is delta Vw. So the tangential thrust then can be given in terms of change of momentum. So mass flow rate into delta Vw. So mass flow rate into the change of velocity in the wheel direction. So if mass flow rate is m dot s, is mass flow rate of steam per unit time. So we can write tangential thrust Pt as m dot s into delta Vw. And the work done is the power output. Okay, per unit time work done is power output. So power output is thrust into velocity, force into velocity. Power output is force into velocity, right? So force is Pt and velocity in that direction, in the wheel direction, velocity is Vb. So Pt into Vb is the work, that is power output from the turbine stage, from that blade, okay, or from that turbine stage. So this is known as blading work or diagram work, because it is calculated based on the diagram, or it is calculated for the blade. This is known as blading work or diagram work, and is a very important property of the turbine blades. Okay, imagine the sequence of energy conversion. Okay, you have high temperature, high pressure steam coming from the boiler to the turbine. Okay, the temperature and pressure of the steam is very high. It means that the steam has very high enthalpy. It has very large amount of energy, but its kinetic energy is very small. Its velocity is very small, but it has a very large amount of energy as in terms of temperature and pressure, in terms of enthalpy. Now we are passing this steam through a set of nozzle. So what is happening? The flow is accelerated in the nozzle. The pressure and temperature decrease. Enthalpy also decrease. That change in enthalpy is manifested as increase in kinetic energy. Okay, the enthalpy has decreased, and what happened to that change in enthalpy? That has become equal to the change in kinetic energy. The kinetic energy has increased. So the velocity has increased from some small value to V1. Okay, V1 is the inlet velocity for this blade stage. Now this fluid has a certain amount of enthalpy still with it and lot of kinetic energy, impinges on the blade and rotates the blade and goes out with a certain amount of enthalpy, and still certain amount of kinetic energy is left. Okay, so it comes in with a kinetic energy. What is the absolute kinetic energy with which it comes? Half V1 square into mass flow rate. Okay, half V1 square into mass flow rate, and it goes out with a kinetic energy half V2 square into mass flow rate. Absolute velocity at the end is V2, so half V2 square into mass flow rate. So the fluid goes out with a small amount of kinetic energy still left. You can see from the diagram that V2 is much smaller than V1. So half V2 square is much less than half V1 square, because we are dealing with squares here. So V2 square will be much less than V1 square. So the fluid goes out with a small amount of kinetic energy and still the enthalpy which is remaining. And rest of the energy, like from half V1 square to half V2 square, that kinetic energy is being used up by the blade to generate work. Okay, this is the sequence of events or energy conversion. Now when this fluid goes out, it again goes to a second set of nozzle. It enters the second set of nozzle with a very small velocity, this V2 velocity. Okay, it enters the second set of nozzle with this V2 velocity, and because the fluid still has lot of enthalpy, again a lot of energy is extracted. The enthalpy goes down, temperature and pressure goes down in the nozzle, and the velocity again increases from V2 to V1. And again the high velocity fluid V1 with velocity V1 impinges on the second set of blades, and so the same process is repeated again and again. So each of them is a single stage. Okay, this is the sequence of energy conversion. So this blading work or blade work is the actual work output that we are obtaining once the kinetic energy gets converted to work. Okay, so we had more energy available for conversion to work, but we could not convert the entire energy to work. Even though we could not convert the entire kinetic energy to work, okay, because of the nature of flow. So because the flow has to go out with certain kinetic energy. So ultimately the part we could convert is known as the blading work or diagram work, and is given by Pt into Vb, which is m dot s delta Vw into Vb. Okay. Where you can replace the delta Vw by this expression 1 plus Kb V1 cos alpha 1 minus Vb. Okay, so it is this blading work is in terms of, so per unit mass flow rate we can divide the entire thing by mass flow rate, so you will get delta Vw into Vb, which will be 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus Vb into Vb if we ignore the frictional losses. Okay, so it will be in terms of V1, alpha 1 and Vb. What is the input energy to the blades? Mass flow rate into inlet kinetic energy, m dot s into V1 square by 2, as I was saying. Okay, so the efficiency of energy conversion, can be stated as blading efficiency or diagram efficiency, and it can be calculated as the work that is generated m dot s delta Vw into Vb divided by the total energy, kinetic energy that was available for generating the work, which is m dot s into V1 square by 2. So m dot s gets cancelled. So you are left with 2 delta Vw Vb by V1 square. Okay, this is known as blading or diagram efficiency, eta d. So this gives us an idea about how efficiently we are converting the kinetic energy into work output, shaft work output. Okay. Any questions up to this point? You are still able to hear me, right? I am just talking non-stop for a long time. Any questions? Very important. So you should be able to draw this diagram. Once you are able to draw the diagram, all these other calculations are very easy. You have to just know the axial direction and the tangential direction. Okay. Any problems can be solved like this, and you can expect problems like that in the exam. Okay. Exam question paper is already done and submitted, but these are part of the syllabus, so and very important. So anyway. Yes.
So like in the turbine blades only the kinetic energy will decrease and the enthalpy will remain constant. Like
it's a very good point you have raised. No, it's a very good point. Both can happen. Okay, there are different types of turbine blades. In some type of turbine blades, the kinetic energy only decreases, enthalpy remains constant. In another type of turbine blades, the kinetic energy decreases and the enthalpy is also decreased, so we get more energy out of that. Okay, so the first type of turbine blade, we will come to this subsequently, how to calculate. The first type of turbine blade is known as impulse turbine. Okay, I will show you some diagrams also how it happens. In impulse turbine, the pressure drop occurs only in the nozzles. What you are asking, so whether the kinetic energy only decreases in the turbine blades or not. So if the kinetic energy only decreases in the turbine blades, the enthalpy remains constant in the turbine blades. Okay, so the only enthalpy drop occurs in the nozzles. Enthalpy drop is equivalent to pressure drop, basically means you are decreasing the pressure and temperature. So that only occurs in the nozzles. So these are known as impulse turbines. So right now what we are studying are known as impulse turbine. There are a second type of turbine where there is enthalpy drop even in the moving blades or rotors. Okay, so for this type of turbines, we extract more energy from the fluid even in the moving blades. Okay, so this we will study later on. So both can happen. So this second type is known as reaction turbine. We have not yet studied. Okay, is it clear, your question?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Very good question. So we will discuss later also what is the shape of the blade. So for impulse turbine, like what we are discussing right now, the passage area between two blades should remain constant. Okay, so that the flow between the blades do not act like a nozzle. Okay, flow area does not act like a nozzle for the moving blades. Passage area remains constant. That's why VR2 is equal to VR1 when there are no frictional losses. Okay, but we will see that for reaction turbine, the passage area between the moving blades is also like a nozzle, like a converging diverging passage. So what happens is between the moving blades also the flow is accelerated. Okay, it will be like acting like a nozzle. So further kinetic energy will be generated in the moving blade itself. Okay, from the enthalpy. That is the difference. So we will come to that later on in the next class. Today we will study about impulse turbines. But question is very good, means anyway. So this is the efficiency, right? Expression of efficiency 2 delta VW VB by V1 square. So if we want to, we can sometimes it is written by defining a ratio of velocities, which is known as velocity ratio rho. Okay, which is the blade velocity by nozzle outlet velocity, means flow inlet velocity, inlet flow velocity V1. Okay, you will see that these two velocities we encounter a lot. One is the blade velocity because it is dependent on the design parameters, and the second is V1 because V1 is the velocity from the nozzle. It depends on how much enthalpy you have converted to kinetic energy. Okay, so this ratio VB is much smaller than V1, as you can see from this diagram. V1 is much larger than VB. VB is much smaller than V1. So this ratio VB by V1 is known as velocity ratio rho. Okay, so we can write this eta d as eta d is 2 delta VW. Delta VW can be written as V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB into 1 plus KB. We have already derived this here. Okay, this expression into 1 extra VB is there in this expression divided by V1 square. Okay, so now by dividing by V1 square, the numerator you get 2 rho cos alpha 1 minus rho square 1 plus KB. Okay, 2 rho cos alpha 1 minus rho square into 1 plus KB. Okay, so this is the efficiency in terms of the velocity ratio. So to obtain maximum efficiency or to find the optimum velocity ratio so that the efficiency is maximum, we can differentiate the efficiency with respect to rho and equate it to 0. Okay, so if we do that, if you differentiate this term with respect to rho and equate it to 0, you will get 2 cos alpha 1 minus 4 rho into 1 plus KB equal to 0, or optimum rho. So rho is cos alpha 1 by 2. Okay, or optimum rho is cos alpha 1 by 2. Okay, so maximum efficiency is obtained when VB by V1 is equal to cos alpha 1 by 2. Okay, so depending on the value or the angle, or we can design the angle so that we get the optimum VB by V1. Generally, this angle is not independent. It depends on the manufacturing process, what will be the alpha 1 values. So accordingly, and VB is also not independent. So V1 has to be calculated based on this ratio, means based on, so VB and cos alpha 1, we have to calculate V1, and then the nozzle has to be designed based on that. So what should be the enthalpy change in the nozzle based on V1. Okay, so this is the optimum velocity ratio, and with the optimum velocity ratio we can find the maximum efficiency if you put the value of rho optimum in this expression of eta d. So if you put the value of rho optimum in this expression of eta d, rho will become cos alpha 1 by 2, and this rho square is cos square alpha 1 by 4. So ultimately you will get 1 plus KB cos square alpha 1 by 2. If we ignore the frictional losses, if KB is 1, then this is equal to cos square alpha 1. So from now onward we are going to ignore the frictional losses. Okay, we will assume that there are no frictional losses so that our calculations are simplified. So in that case, maximum efficiency is equal to cos square alpha 1. So we cannot reach 1. Okay, and alpha 1 cannot be arbitrarily changed also, means it depends on the design. So this is the maximum efficiency that can be obtained. Okay. Now if for the axial direction, if you remember initially I had asked and someone had correctly answered that If there are no frictional losses, the axial change in velocity will be 0. VA1 minus VA2 will be 0. Okay. But if there is frictional losses, then there is a change in axial component of velocity, which is equal to VA1 minus VA2. Okay. So this can be written as delta VW, the small change. So again, drawing is very difficult using the mouse, but the small change is delta VA, sorry, axial change in axial component of velocity. Okay. So this into mass flow rate, okay, gives us the axial thrust. So what is this delta VA? This is V1. So this VA1 is equal to V1 sine alpha 1. Okay. And V2 is VA2 is equal to V2 sine alpha 2. We can also write them in terms of the blade angles and relative velocities. So VA1 is equal to VR1 sine beta 1. So this height is VR1 sine beta 1 and this height is VR2 sine beta 2. So m dot s into VR1 sine beta 1 minus VR2 sine beta 2. If Kb is equal to 1 and beta 1 is equal to beta 2, VR1 sine beta 1 equal to VR2 sine beta 2 and Pa is equal to 0. However, if Kb is less than 1, VR2 will be slightly less than VR1 and we will have a slightly positive value of Pa. Having a value of Pa is actually harmful. What is the axial thrust? Axial thrust occurs in which direction? It occurs along the axis of the shaft. Okay. So if we have a shaft like this, so this is the shaft, right? So along the axis of the shaft there is a force generated. So each of the blades has a, like each of the rotor will have a axial thrust Pa. So this will have some Pa value, this will have some Pa. So if you add up all the thrust, there is substantial thrust in the axial direction, and this has to be balanced by the bearings at the end, because this thrust is not useful. The thrust along the axial direction is not useful. This has to be managed by the bearings. Otherwise, the turbine shaft will try to move along the axis. Okay, so you have to put the shaft in place with the help of bearings. So it creates a lot of load on the bearings. So it is better to have the axial thrust, means as low as possible. So if it is 0, is the best option. Okay, obviously it cannot be 0, but it should be as low as possible. Axial thrust should be as low as possible so that there is less load on the bearing. So that's why axial thrust is important. Okay. So to summarize, tangential thrust is used for torque generation. Axial thrust creates a force along the axis of the shaft and thus puts forces on the bearings. It should be as low as possible. Okay. I will take a break, but before that, let me just go through some more derivations. So this completes one part. Any questions on this? You should be able to understand how do we calculate the work output by the blades. Okay, so work output by the blades is mass flow rate into change in the tangential component of velocity. Okay, so if you are asked to calculate per unit mass, or if nothing is mentioned about mass flow rate, you have to assume that you have to calculate per unit mass. So per unit mass, the work output is delta VW, sorry, the tangential force delta VW into blade velocity VB. So delta VW into VB is the work output per unit mass from a set of blades, okay, from a single rotor. And then you can calculate the efficiency by dividing by the inlet kinetic energy half V1 square by 2, okay, which will give you the efficiency. So we can also relate the blade angles and flow angles. It's just geometry, basically simple geometry. I have just shown it here to show that for other cases I will not show, but for this case I have shown it here because to show you that if some of the angles are given, say beta 1 and beta 2 are given, or alpha 1 and alpha 2 are given, you can find the other angles easily. Okay. So the inlet blade angle beta 1 can be calculated if you know V1 and alpha 1, okay, and VV. How? So V1 cos alpha 1 is this length. V1 cos alpha 1 is VR1 cos beta 1, this length, plus VB. Okay. So V1 cos alpha 1 is VR1 cos beta 1 plus VB. And V1 sin alpha 1, this length, is equal to VR1 sin beta 1. Okay. So if you divide this VR1 sin beta 1 by VR1 cos beta 1, you will obtain tan beta 1 is equal to V1 sin alpha 1 divided by V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. So if you know V1, alpha 1 and VB, you can find out what is tan beta 1, and from that you will find out what is the blade angle beta 1. Okay. In case beta 1 and beta 2 are not equal, for a general case, okay, beta 2 can be obtained in the similar way. So again, V2 cos alpha 2, this length, V2 cos alpha 2 is VR2 cos beta 2, this entire length minus VB. Okay, V2 cos alpha 2 is VR2 cos beta 2 minus VB, and V2 sin alpha 2 is this length, is equal to VR2 sin beta 2. Okay, so again, if you divide VR2 sin beta 2 by VR2 cos beta 2, you will obtain tan beta 2 equal to V2 sin alpha 2 by V2 cos alpha 2 plus VB. Okay, so like this we can find the blade angles from the flow angles. Opposite also can be done. If the blade angles are known, you can find out the flow angles. So it's just, you have to just draw the velocity diagram and correlate the values. Let us finish up to this part and then take a break. So just a second. We have already seen this. Let me reiterate and or revise this part. What is the variation, like how the flow occurs in the nozzle and the moving blades, and then we will see what is the approximate variation of pressure and velocity for a single stage. So a single set of nozzle and a single set of rotor blades or moving blades constitute a stage. Okay, so this is a single stage. Okay. Similarly, if we have another nozzle set and another moving blade, that will be another stage. Okay. So for example, I will show you one example. Okay. So this is stage 1. Okay. One nozzle and one set of moving blades. This is stage 1. Similarly, another set of nozzle, another set of moving blades. This is stage 2. Like this, we can have multiple stages. Okay. We'll come to this later on today itself. But let us keep this open. For a single set, we have seen that initial velocity in the nozzle may be very small. Okay, it is coming from the furnace, so it is very small. Say it is equal to V0. Okay, so initial velocity is equal to V0. So after the nozzle, the velocity becomes supersonic. So the velocity increases in the nozzle from V0 to V1, very high value V1. Okay, what happens to the pressure, temperature, and enthalpy in the nozzle? Pressure, temperature, and enthalpy decreases. So if we plot the pressure, it may not be linear, but it decreases in the nozzle. Okay, here for simplicity I have drawn in a linear fashion, but actually it just decreases in the nozzle. Okay, so pressure at the beginning will be high, and we have calculated in the nozzle how the pressure decreases. Stagnation pressure remains same, but the static pressure decreases, and you can relate it with the Mach number. With increasing Mach number, you will have lower static pressure, and you can easily calculate based on the equations that we have derived. So the pressure decreases in the nozzle. So ultimately we get very high kinetic energy and low pressure. Low pressure means also low temperature and low enthalpy. Okay. Then there is a small gap and the fluid enters the moving blades with an absolute velocity V1 and goes out of the moving blades with an absolute velocity V2. Okay. In terms of relative velocity, velocity does not change. VR1 and VR2 is same, but the absolute velocity changes drastically. It was very high velocity and now it becomes very low velocity V2. Okay, so the velocity decreases, and what happens to the pressure and enthalpy? Somebody had asked the question today, right? What happens to the enthalpy? So there is no change in enthalpy for this impulse turbine. So the turbine that we are studying now is impulse turbine. For this case, there is no change in enthalpy. So no change in pressure or temperature, nothing happens. So the passage area between these two blades remains similar. This is as if from the point of view of the blade, if you are sitting on the moving blades, you will see that the flow is entering and moving around smoothly and going out at the same velocity, as if the flow is occurring through a bent pipe. Okay, as if the flow is occurring through a bent pipe like this. So the flow is coming at a certain velocity, it goes out smoothly from the other side with the same velocity, if you ignore friction and other things. But the absolute velocity decreases drastically. But there is no change in relative velocity, so there is no decrease in enthalpy, no conversion of enthalpy into any kinetic energy. or no change in pressure or temperature. So pressure remains constant. This is for a single stage. Okay. Same thing will be repeated again and again if you have multiple stages. And a typical turbine will have large number of stages, as you have seen in this diagram. So many stages, 20, 30 stages can be there. Okay. So we have seen that. Any questions on this? Is it clear to everyone, this diagram? You should be able to draw this approximate variation of velocity and pressure for this type of turbines. Any questions?
No, sir.
No questions. Hope it is clear. We are going quite slowly itself. So anyway, we have already obtained that rho optimum is cos alpha 1 by 2. Okay. This we had obtained just a few minutes back. Rho optimum is cos alpha 1 by 2. Okay. So VB by V1 is cos alpha 1 by 2. Okay. So now if there is a single stage, okay, imagine that there is only a single stage. So single set of nozzles and single moving blade. The entire enthalpy change of the turbine. So we draw the TS diagram of the turbine like this, right? The velocity goes from 1 to, sorry, the enthalpy goes from 1 to 2. So the process goes from 1 to 2, okay, in a turbine. So when you have studied about Rankine cycle in the beginning of the course, we had drawn the turbine process like this, going from pressure P1 0.1 to pressure P2 0.2. If we ignore the isentropic losses, this is an isentropic process. So H2 is equal to S1 and H2 is much less than H1. Okay. So the change in velocity, the energy, kinetic energy generated. Can you say what will be the kinetic energy in terms of the enthalpy? The kinetic energy will be H1 minus H2, right? Half V1 square. If we ignore the inlet velocity, half V1 square is equal to, sorry, in this case, this is V2. Okay, this 2 point is actually the exit velocity. This kinetic energy here will be equal to change in enthalpy. Okay. So this change in enthalpy and increase in kinetic energy occurs in the nozzle. So if we have a single set of nozzles, single stage, the entire delta H is taken care of in a single stage. Okay. Then the V1 is very high. This V1 is not at this point V1. Okay. This V1 is at the outlet of the nozzle at this point. Okay. This V1 is at the outlet of the nozzle and the V1 is very high. Why? Because you are converting the entire enthalpy for the turbine. It's a turbine. So we have designed a turbine where we have denoted that the change of enthalpy should be 600 kilojoule per kg. Okay. So in general, I should have 20 stages. Each stage should have 30 kilojoule per kg. Then I will have 600 kilojoule in 20 stages equally divided. But if you have a single stage, so entire 600 kilojoule per kg of enthalpy gets converted to kinetic energy. So you can imagine how high will be the velocity V1. It will be huge. Okay. The V1 velocity will be very large. Entire delta H is converted to V1. Okay. So V1 becomes very high if I have only a single stage. Okay. So for optimum or maximum efficiency, because VB is related to V1, VB will also become very high. If V1 is very high, VB is also very high. Okay. Now VB is given by, as we have discussed previously, VB is given by pi into mean diameter dm into RPM n divided by 60. Okay. Pi into mean diameter of the blade into RPM n divided by 60. Okay. So if VB is very high, either dm has to be very high or m has to be very high or both has to be very high. Okay. So if dm is very high, what is the problem? Mean diameter is very high means the length of the blades is very large. Blades are very long. What is the problem in having very long blades? It's already written there, so there's no point is asking. Okay, so if the blades is very long, okay, size of the turbine becomes more, means the cross-sectional area of the turbine is more. So this, so for example, this stage dm is very large, so the cross-sectional area becomes large, and size of the turbine becomes very large. And the second thing is that if the blades are very long, centrifugal stresses will be large. Long blades means more stresses and more chances of bending also of the blades, okay, which is not good. And then there will be more chances of creep, deformation. So everything. So from stress point of view, it is very bad. Okay. Similarly, if n is very large also, centrifugal stresses will be very large because centrifugal stresses will depend on the rotational speed. And also if for very large rotational speed, there will be more frictional losses. Okay. Rotation is very fast, so there are more frictional losses in the bearings, there are more frictional losses within the gas itself because the blades are pushing along the gas. There are gas frictional losses, means steam frictional losses, which are known as windage losses. We will study later. So both are harmful. High value of n is also harmful, high value of dm is also harmful. It means that we should not have very large value of vb. Okay, so it means that single stage is not feasible. So that's why we need to divide a turbine into multiple stages, so that in each stage we have a small amount of conversion of kinetic energy into work. Okay, instead of converting the entire enthalpy into kinetic energy in a single stage, resulting in all these problems, we will divide the enthalpy into small groups of kinetic energy in each stage, and we will have multiple stages each will generate certain amount of work. Is it clear? So if
Yes,
there
sir.
are no questions, let me take a break to rest my voice for a few minutes, and then we will continue after that. Okay, we'll continue on multiple stages. I will keep the diagram open so that if you want to make some sense of the diagram, you can make some sense of the diagram. Excuse me. So we will continue. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Let us continue. So this using of multiple stages, okay, using of multiple stages is known as compounding of turbines, and there are two ways to compound or use multiple stages for impulse turbines. Till now we are studying impulse turbine only. Okay, remember what is impulse turbine? The change of kinetic energy occurs only in the nozzle, means the conversion of enthalpy to kinetic energy. In the moving blades, the kinetic energy is used for work generation. There is no change in enthalpy in the moving blades. Okay, no change in pressure, temperature, and enthalpy in the moving blades. That is what we are calling as impulse turbine. And there are two ways of arranging the impulse turbine so as to have multiple stages. Okay, what are these two ways? Let us see. We will keep this for reference later on. So one is known as pressure compounding. It is also known as roto turbine. Okay, pronounced as roto. R-A-T-E-A-U. Written like this, was pronounced as roto. And the second type is known as velocity compounding, and it is known as Curtis turbine. Okay. Sometimes in engineering books you will see that instead of calling pressure compounding and velocity compounding, they are directly saying that there is a roto turbine with two stages, or there are two Curtis stages. Okay, it means that Curtis stages means velocity compounded turbine, and roto stages means pressure compounded turbine. So let us try to understand what is pressure compounding and what is velocity compounding. So in pressure compounding, what happens is that each set of nozzle and moving blade. Okay, so remember that each set of nozzle and moving blade is like a single stage. Okay, so then second set of nozzle and moving blade is another stage. Similarly, we will have third stage of nozzle and moving blade as stage 3, then stage 4, stage 5. Maybe there may be 20 stages. Okay, so each of these stages behave exactly in a similar way. What happens is that the pressure, initially the pressure, and whenever I am saying pressure, same thing holds true for enthalpy and temperature also. So pressure, temperature, and enthalpy is high at the inlet of the nozzle. Then the pressure and temperature and enthalpy is reduced in the nozzle, and the velocity is increased. So from small velocity to a large velocity it is increased. Okay. Then after passing through the moving blades, the velocity is again reduced to a small velocity. This we have already studied, right? Just a few seconds back, right? We have studied this. So the same thing, this was the stage. So after passing through the moving blade, the velocity is reduced back to a very small value, but there is no change in pressure, temperature, or enthalpy. Okay. So same thing is again repeated. So in the second stage nozzle, again there is a drop in enthalpy, and accordingly there is a drop in pressure and temperature. And as a result, that enthalpy gets converted to kinetic energy. Again the velocity increases to a high value, and again in the moving blades the velocity is decreased, kinetic energy is decreased, but the pressure, temperature, or enthalpy does not change. Same thing keeps on getting repeated again and again. So if I have 10 stages, each stage will generally it will be designed such that each stage will have a equal distribution of enthalpy drop. So each stage will have a certain enthalpy drop and certain increase in velocity. Okay. So if I have, say, for the total turbine, I have 300 kilojoule per kg of enthalpy drop, and I have 10 stages. Each stage will have 30 kilojoule per kg of enthalpy drop. So from that we can calculate what will be the velocity change in each stage. Okay. So same stage is repeated again and again for pressure compounding. Okay. And the main key difference with this one for this one with the next one will be that in this case the pressure is decreased and the velocity is increased in all the nozzles. Okay, so first stage nozzle pressure decreases, velocity increases. Second nozzle pressure decreases, velocity increases. Third nozzle pressure decreases, velocity increases. Each nozzle will have certain pressure decrease and velocity increase. So each of them acts like a nozzle basically. Okay. So to summarize, each stage consists of one stator with nozzles and one rotor with moving blades. Same combination is repeated again and again. Therefore, the velocity variation in each stage is similar. Okay. So whatever velocity diagram we have drawn here, the same diagram will be repeated again and again for each stage. Okay, exactly same diagram will be present for each stage. So what will happen is that at the inlet of the rotor, velocity will be v1, and at the outlet, velocity will be v2. Then this v2 velocity, the flow with the v2 velocity will enter the nozzle, and it will come out with v1 velocity again. And again it will enter the next stage of rotor with v1 velocity, and again at the outlet it will be v2. And again with the low velocity v2 it will enter the nozzle, and again will come out with v1 velocity. So same thing is getting repeated again and again. So you can say that rotor blade inlet velocity is v1, rotor blade outlet velocity is v2, nozzle inlet velocity is v2, nozzle outlet velocity is v1. Okay. So nozzle inlet velocity is v2 and nozzle outlet velocity is v1. So in the nozzle, flow is accelerated from v2 to v1 velocity. The velocity variation in each stage is similar. Main feature of pressure compounding is that pressure drop occurs in each stage. Okay, as I have already mentioned, pressure drop occurs in each stage, and the velocity diagrams are similar for all these stages. Okay, let me keep that diagram open for reference. So if we have n number of stages, okay, so 10 stages are there or 8 stages are there, and the total enthalpy drop for based on the Rankine cycle calculation. Total enthalpy drop is based on cycle calculations, right? So for the turbine, the total enthalpy drop is say 300 kilojoule per kg or 500 kilojoule per kg, whatever. So that is given as delta H total, and each stage has a enthalpy drop of delta H stage. Okay, based on this we can calculate what should be the number of stages. Okay, so n is equal to delta H total by delta H stage. So if I had a one stage turbine, okay, instead of multiple stages, if I had a single stage turbine, so entire enthalpy drop would have occurred in the single stage. So in that case, the velocity of the nozzle at the exit of the nozzle is, if it is given by Vs, okay, say the velocity of the nozzle is Vs, velocity at the exit of the nozzle is Vs. If I have a single stage turbine, okay, which is unrealistic, but say I have, just for comparison, then the total, then the velocity at the exit of the nozzle would have been equal to 2 delta H total, root over 2 delta H total. Half Vs square would have been delta H total. So Vs would have been root over 2 delta H total. Okay, so Vs would have been a very large value because delta H total is very large. I hope this is clear. Okay, where Vs is the nozzle exit velocity. Now with n number of stages for the real turbine, if V1 is the nozzle exit velocity from each nozzle has the same velocity. Remember, nozzle exit velocity for each nozzle is V1. Then V1 is equal to root over 2 delta H stage. Okay, V1 is equal to root over 2 delta H stage. So it will depend on the enthalpy change in each stage, and delta H stage is equal to delta H total by n. So V1 is equal to root over 2 delta H total by n. Okay, or I can write V1 is equal to Vs by root over n. Okay, so if for a single stage, if the velocity would have been some value, for say 16 stages, the velocity will be 4 times less because it is Vs by root over 16. Okay, so if for a single stage, if the value would have been say 1000 meter per second, very large value, 1000 meter per second, for 16 stages, V1 will be equal to 250 meter per second. Okay. So if there are 4 stages, it will be half Vs. Okay, similarly we can find. Now Vb by V1 is cos alpha 1 by 2 because that calculation is still true, whatever we have calculated, because the same diagram, velocity diagram, repeats for each stage. So for each stage, Vb by V1 should be cos alpha 1 by 2. And if I have a single stage turbine, then Vbs by Vs will also be equal to cos alpha 1 by 2. So for 4 stages, Vb is equal to half Vbs. So rotational speed Vb, means blade speed Vb, will be reduced to half. If I have 16 stages, Vb will be 1 by 4 Vbs. So for n stages, Vb is equal to 1 by root over n Vbs. Okay. So because Vb is reduced, blade velocity is reduced, we will have either we will have low RPM or we will have less, we can have less mean diameter. So that's why multiple stages are beneficial. Okay. So this, we have overcome the problem that was present with large RPM or large mean diameter, and the ratio can be obtained based on this relation. V1 is equal to Vs by root over n. Any questions? Calculation is exactly similar. For each stage it is similar. So for each stage you have to do the same calculation what we have done for the single stage turbine. So whatever we have discussed, blade efficiency, blading work, blading efficiency, everything are same for this. So you just have to repeat the same thing again and again. Okay, same stage is getting repeated again and again. What are the properties which will be similar in every stage, and what are the properties which will not be similar in every stage? Can anyone tell? What about the velocities? Will the velocity profiles look similar in each stage?
So profiles would be same, the value would be different because we have different inlet velocities after each stage.
No, value also will be same. Okay, that is why profile and value both will be same, because we will not have different inlet velocity after each stage. The way we will design, the inlet value for each of the moving blade will be equal to V1 and the outlet value will be V2. And in the second nozzle, the inlet value is V2 and the outlet, so nozzle can be defined such that the outlet velocity is still V1. So again for the next set of moving blades, the inlet value is V1 and outlet value is V2. So the velocity will be exactly similar. Okay, there should not be any confusion here. If you take any stage, the velocity will look exactly similar. Okay, velocity
So
will not.
what have we derived here? Vs by root n, V1 equals to Vs by root n, which would be input to our
We have
turbine.
derived that if instead of n stages, if I had a single stage turbine, okay, hypothetically, say I did not have n stages, I had a single stage, means the entire load is taken by the single stage instead of say 20 stages or 15 stages, then what would have been the value of the nozzle exit velocity? Okay, so that would have been Vs, which would have been a very high velocity. But instead of that, if I have n number of stages, then what is the actual velocity? Actual velocity is V1. For each stage, the actual velocity is V1.
Okay, so
My
each stage same velocity would be there, just it
yes,
would be
yes,
V1.
it will be V1. For each stage, the velocity will be V1. If you have 16 stages, each stage will have the same velocity at the inlet and outlet. Velocity is not going to change. Then what properties are going? So you can see here also, right? Velocity, this curve is exactly same as this curve. Okay, this should be exactly same as this curve, and exactly same thing should be again repeated. Okay, for the velocity. Velocity profiles remain similar. What are the things which will change from each stage? Pressure will change. Okay, pressure will decrease. Each stage nozzle will have a decrease in pressure. So here you see that average pressure is higher. Here the average pressure is lower. In the next stage pressure will be even lower. Then in the next stage it will be even lower, like this. And the average enthalpy and average temperature also will become lower. Okay. So if I draw in a TS diagram, again drawing is difficult here, but otherwise I have to bring my tablet. Say this is the entire process, okay, of the turbine. So now first stage will only have enthalpy drop going from here to here. Okay, let me zoom in. First stage will only have enthalpy drop going from here to here. Second stage will have enthalpy drop going from here to here. Third stage will have enthalpy drop going from here to here. Okay, so the enthalpy will keep on dropping, means the initial enthalpy at the inlet of each stage will be different. Okay, and initial pressure and temperature will also be different, but the velocity profile will be similar. Okay, because the pressure and temperature is decreasing and density is increasing. Pressure temperature decreases means density is increasing. Okay, pressure decreases means density is increasing. Pressure is decreasing drastically. Pressure has a more stronger influence on density as compared to temperature. So density is decreasing. Okay, specific volume is increasing. So because specific volume is increasing, to keep the velocity similar in each stage, if you just keep the same cross-sectional area, if the specific volume increases, what will happen to the velocity in each stage? Did you understand my question? So in each stage, the pressure and temperature is decreasing. It means that the specific volume is increasing. Okay. Now say I design the stages. All the stages have same diameter. All the stages have same length of blade, same diameter. So now what will happen to the flow velocity for each stage? Will it remain same? Like will it be given like this, what we have drawn? Come on, some answers.
So like for same mass flow rate, the velocity should increase. Like
Velocity will increase. So we not correct. It's correct. Velocity will increase. So mass flow rate will be same, right? Mass flow rate you cannot change. So mass flow rate is same. This is design parameter. So velocity will increase in each of the subsequent stages, but we want to keep the velocity similar in each of the stages. Okay, because that is what is given by our optimum calculation. So to keep the velocity similar, then we have to increase the length of the blades. That's why you see that the length of the blades are increasing. So initial stages are very small blades, final stages are very long blades. Okay, so that the still the velocity will change because mean velocity VB is still changing. So a lot of things are actually in actual calculation. When you are actually designing a turbine, things are much more complicated. But in our course, we will assume that velocities remain similar in all the stages, and the blade length is increased to cater to the increasing volume, specific volume. Okay. So this is for pressure compounded turbine. Okay. So the other type of compounding, so I will keep the pressure compounding open here so that you can compare with the other type. The other type of, close this. Okay, this is the pressure compounding. Other type of compounding is known as velocity compounding. Let us try to take a look at that. Okay. And then we'll do an analysis of velocity compounding and finish today's class. So in velocity compounding, in contrast to pressure compounding, all the stages are not similar. Okay. So the first stage has a nozzle, okay, where the entire velocity drop occurs. First stage has a nozzle where the entire velocity generation occurs in the first stage. Okay. So from V0 to V1, the entire velocity generation, entire kinetic energy generation occurs in the first stage nozzle, and the entire enthalpy drop also occurs in the first stage. Okay. Then we have, so from V0 to V1 there is a huge jump in velocity. So V1 is a very high velocity. Okay. Then like a single stage turbine. Then in the moving blades, the velocity gets reduced from V1 to V2. Okay. So this completes the first stage, stage 1. Okay. So in stage 1 you generate a very high velocity from V0 to V1, then extract some of the kinetic energy as work output. V2 is still quite high. Okay. V2 is not as small as V0. V2 is still quite high. What happens to the enthalpy and pressure in the moving blades? No change occurs because it's an impulse turbine, no change occurs. This is still an impulse turbine. So there is no change in the pressure and enthalpy in the moving blade. Now in the second stage, we don't have any nozzle. For all the subsequent stages, we don't have any nozzle. We have something which are known as fixed blades. Okay. What is the difference between nozzles and fixed blades? In fixed blades, the passage area does not change. The area of the the area for the flow does not change from one side to the other side. So there is no nozzle like effect. So there is no acceleration of flow. So whatever is the inlet velocity at the end, at the inlet of the fixed blade, is equal to the outlet velocity at the exit of the fixed blade. Okay. So the velocity remains constant. The absolute velocity remains constant throughout the length of the fixed blade. So the flow enters the fixed blade with velocity V2 and exits the fixed blade with velocity V3. Then we have another set of moving blade where this inlet kinetic energy is half V3 square. So this V3 which is still quite a large value, is again reduced to a lower velocity V4, and ultimately the flow goes out with a smaller velocity. If I have third stage, then at the entry of the third stage fixed blade, the entry velocity will be V4 and there won't be any change in velocity in the fixed blade. Then in the moving blade, the velocity will decrease further from V4 to some value like V6. Okay. So what is the difference then? You can compare these two diagrams to see the difference. In the velocity compounded turbine, the pressure drop occurs only in the first stage and the kinetic energy is generated only in the first stage as compared to all these stages for pressure compounding. In pressure compounding, all the stages have pressure drops and kinetic energy generation. Here the pressure drop and kinetic energy generation occurs only in the first stage and the subsequent stages only use the initial kinetic energy. So part by part it keeps on using the initial kinetic energy. And there are no nozzles, only fixed blades, and the only role of the fixed blade is to move the direction of the flow so that it is aligned with the next set of moving blades. Okay. So the only role of the fixed blade is to change the direction of flow so that it is aligned, so that it can enter smoothly the next set of moving blades. Otherwise, it does not have any role. You can ask what is the advantage of this. Okay, we will see later that there is an advantage also. It is not that everything is, means it looks like this is not good because we are not equally dividing the workload for the nozzle, means kinetic energy conversion between all the stages. First stage is very large velocity, so all the problems will still be there for the whatever was we had discussed, that very high blade velocity will be there, things like that. But actually it is not true. We will see later. The optimum ratio will be different. Okay, so there are some advantages of this also. Let us try to understand this. Still some time is left today, so we will finish this part. In the next class, we will discuss about reaction turbines. So because the velocity is changing from each stage, you can see directly from the velocity diagram that the first stage velocity diagram is different. Means first stage, at the first stage rotor inlet velocity is V1 and at the exit velocity is V2. So inlet velocity is very high, exit velocity is also quite high. In the second stage rotor, the inlet velocity is equal to V3, which is equal to V2. Okay, which is equal to the first stage outlet velocity, and outlet velocity is even lower, V4. So second stage deals with much lower velocity as compared to first stage. Okay, so the velocity diagrams are not same for each stage. So it means that we have to consider the velocity diagram of each stage separately. Unlike this pressure compounding, where if we calculate the velocity diagram for one stage, it is sufficient. We can just repeat the same calculation for n number of stages. Unlike that, for velocity compounded turbine, we have to draw a separate velocity diagram for first stage. We have to draw a separate velocity diagram for second stage, like this. Okay. Typically, velocity compounded turbines have only two stages. There are only two velocity compounded stages. There is a reason for that. We will discuss later after in the next class. So we will also study a two-stage velocity compounded turbine or Curtis turbine. Okay, but theoretically it can have three stages also. But the third stage will have so low velocities that the energy generated will be very small in the third stage. So it is not very useful. Most of the energy is generated, most of the work is generated by the first stage. Some work is generated by the second stage. If you have multiple stages, the third stage or fourth stage will generate very less amount of work. So it will not be very useful. Okay, that's why it has typically only two stages. So to summarize what I have discussed, let us keep this open for reference. Stages are not similar. Only first stage has nozzles. Very high velocity is generated in the first stage nozzle. Some of the kinetics energy is used by the first stage rotor. The steam has significant kinetic energy at the inlet of the second stage. Steam has still significant kinetic energy at the inlet of the second stage. Instead of nozzle, the second stage has fixed blades, but the flow area does not change. Hence, there is no change in velocity in the fixed blades. The function of the fixed blades is to change the direction of flow so that it is aligned properly at the inlet of the moving blades. Entire pressure drop occurs in the first stage. Velocity diagrams for each stage is different. All this we have discussed. So this is just a summary. When you are reading the notes, it will be helpful for you. So now let us try to analyze this. So I think 2-3 pages are there. We will finish with this today. It's not difficult to analyze this. So we'll analyze the two-stage velocity compounded turbine. Okay, and we will see that the process is exactly similar to the single-stage turbine that we have studied today. The process is exactly similar, but we have two velocity diagrams now. The two different velocity diagrams, and we have to Find out the thrust from each of the stages and add the thrust to get the total thrust. Any questions or any confusion between pressure and velocity compounding? After the class, please go through the notes, okay, on means before next class. These are very important. Any questions?
No, sir.
3 pages we will finish quickly. Okay. Okay, so keep this diagram in mind, okay, with the velocity diagram. At the inlet of the first stage rotor, velocity is V1. At the outlet of the first stage rotor, velocity is V2. At the inlet of the second stage rotor, velocity is V3 and V3 is equal to V2. And at the please switch off your mic. Are you asking anything? At the exit of the second stage rotor, the velocity is V4. Okay. So V1 and V2 are the inlet and exit velocities of the first stage rotor. V3 and V4 are the inlet and exit velocities from the second stage rotor. Okay. So let us draw the velocity diagram. Velocity diagram will look exactly similar to what we have drawn previously. And we will ignore the friction factor. We will assume that there is no friction. Okay. To simplify things. So inlet velocity is V1 at an angle alpha 1. And inlet relative velocity is Vr1 at an angle beta 1 and blade velocity is Vb. Yes, any question, or if there is question please ask me, otherwise please switch off the mic so that others can hear clearly. Inlet velocity is V1 at an angle alpha 1 and inlet relative velocity for the moving blade is Vr1 at an angle beta 1, like what we have discussed previously, and the blade velocity is Vb. So vector addition of Vr1 and Vb is equal to V1. Okay. And outlet velocity from the moving blade, absolute velocity is V2 at an angle alpha 2 and relative velocity is Vr2 at an angle beta 2. Okay. And again vector addition of Vr2 and Vb is equal to V2. Vr2 plus Vb is equal to V2. Also, please note that B1 beta 1 is equal to beta 2. We have already discussed that blade angles are generally kept similar. So beta 1 is equal to beta 2. And because there are no frictional losses, Vr1 also is equal to Vr2. Okay. So Vr1 is equal to Vr2 and beta 1 is equal to beta 2. Okay. So I have written here beta 1 is equal to beta 2 and Vr1 equal to Vr2. Okay. This is the velocity diagram for the first stage. Now for the second stage, the inlet velocity is V3. So the inlet velocity is V3 at an angle alpha 3 and the inlet relative velocity with respect to the blade is Vr3 at an angle beta 3. Blade velocity is still Vb. Blades are still moving with same velocity, right? Because the mean diameter, we will assume that the mean diameter is same and rotational speed obviously has to be same because they are mounted on the same shaft. So the blade velocity is the only thing which remains same for each stage. Okay. So blade velocity is still Vb. So vector addition of Vr3 and Vb gives us V3. So relative velocity Vr3 at an angle beta 3 plus Vb is equal to V3 at an angle alpha 3. And the flow goes out at an absolute velocity of V4 at an angle alpha 4. The relative velocity at the exit is Vr4 at an angle beta 4 and the vector addition of Vr4 and Vb will give us V4. Okay. So these are the two velocity diagrams. Now some more connections are there between the two velocity diagrams. One we have seen here that V2 is equal to V3. So the exit velocity from this V2 is equal to the inlet velocity here V3. Okay. So this line is equal to this line. I hope you can see this. So this line, okay, is equal to this line. V2 is equal to V3. because that is what we have seen. Exit velocity from the first stage is equal to inlet velocity to the second stage, and also the angle is kept similar. So these blades are symmetric. So the inlet angle for this or the outlet angle from the previous stage, absolute angle, is kept same as this angle. So which means that alpha 2 is also equal to alpha 3. So this angle alpha 2 is also kept equal to this angle alpha 3. Okay. So V2 is equal to V3 and alpha 2 is equal to alpha 3. V3 is equal to V2 and alpha 3 equal to alpha 2. And for the second stage also, like the first stage, beta 3 is equal to beta 4. So the blade angles are equal. Beta 3 is equal to beta 4. Although they are not equal to beta 1 and beta 2. Beta 1 equal to beta 2 separately and beta 3 equal to beta 4 separately. And similarly, VR3 is equal to VR4. Okay. Because there are no frictional losses. VR3 equal to VR4. So these are all the relations. Yes. Beta 1 equal to beta 2, beta 3 equal to beta 4, VR1 equal to VR2, VR3 equal to VR4, and then the two diagrams are related by V2 equal to V3 and alpha 2 equal to alpha 3. Okay. So with this now we will proceed with the calculation. So remember that, okay, so we have assumed that KB is equal to 1 and VB is constant. Okay, these are our assumptions. So the total thrust generated by the two stages in the tangential or wheel direction is mass flow rate into change in wheel component for the first stage, which is delta V1. Okay, change in wheel component of the first stage, delta V1, plus change in wheel component for the second stage, which is delta VW2. Delta VW1 for the first stage and delta VW2 for the second stage. Okay, so the total thrust generated is delta VW1 plus delta VW2 into mass flow rate. Okay, and you can clearly see that the thrust generated by the first stage is much larger. Delta VW1 is much larger as compared to delta VW2. So if I have a third stage, it will have even less value of delta VW. So third stage is not useful at all. Even the second stage also has much lower value of delta VW. Okay, so still there is some use. Otherwise, why we will be studying this, right? Obviously, there has to be some benefit. That is why we are studying this, and we will find the benefit later in the next class. So anyway, this is the thrust generated. The axial thrust is also sum of the axial thrust generated by the first stage and axial thrust generated by the second stage. If these assumptions are true, VR1 equal to VR2 and VR3 equal to VR4, and beta 1 equal to beta 2 and beta 3 equal to beta 4, that is if friction factor also is equal to 1, means there is no friction, then axial thrust is 0. For friction factor equal to 1, axial thrust is 0. So we want to find the tangential thrust. And once we find the tangential thrust by adding the thrust for the first and second stages, we can multiply it by the blade velocity to obtain the blading work. Okay, so blading work will be delta VW1 plus delta VW2 into m dot s into VB, and then we can find the efficiency by dividing by the mass flow rate into kinetic energy. So mass flow rate gets cancelled. So we are left with delta VW1 plus delta VW2 into VB by half V1 square. This is the diagram efficiency. So per unit mass flow rate, the work output is delta VW1 plus delta VW2 into VB, and the efficiency is delta VW1 plus delta VW2 into VB by half V1 square. Okay, because V1 square is the inlet kinetic energy for the entire system, considering the two stages together. The inlet kinetic energy was V1 square, half V1 square. So how efficiently we have converted that entire kinetic energy in the two stages, that is what is given by the diagram efficiency. So now our task is easy. We have to find what is delta V1 and what is delta VW1 and what is delta VW2. Okay, with these assumptions. So delta VW1, let this diagram be open here. Okay, maybe we can increase the size. My screen is large, so it looks good to me, but for you guys it may be small. So delta VW1, like in the previous, exactly like in the previous case, what we have done for the single stage. Similarly, we will follow. Delta VW1 is VW1 plus VW2. Okay, this part plus this part. So VW1 is equal to V1 cos alpha 1, and VW2 is equal to V2 cos alpha 2. Okay, so this part is V1 cos alpha 1 and this part is V2 cos alpha 2. So V1 cos alpha 1 plus V2 cos alpha 2. Now V2 cos alpha 2 can be written as VR2 cos beta 2, okay, VR2 cos beta 2, which is this entire length, minus VB. So we can write V2 cos alpha 2 as VR2 cos beta 2 minus VB. Okay. So delta V W1 is V1 cos alpha 1 plus VR2 cos beta 2 minus VB. Now because VR2 is equal to VR1 and beta 2 equal to beta 1, we can write VR2 cos beta 2 as VR1 cos beta 1. Okay. So delta V W1 becomes equal to V1 cos alpha 1 plus, yes, questions? Switch off your mic. Delta V W1 is V1 cos alpha 1 plus VR1 cos beta 1 minus VB. Okay. Now what is VR1 cos beta 1? This length. This is VR1 cos beta 1. So this is nothing but equal to V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. Okay. So this is equal to V1 cos alpha 1 minus this length VB. So VR1 cos beta 1 can be written as V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. So ultimately we are left with delta V1W is equal to V1 cos alpha 1 plus V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB minus VB. So 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. This you will see is exactly same what we have previously derived also. Okay. If you go back to today's discussion after the class, you will see that we have derived the same formula. Considering KB equal to 1, we have derived that delta VW is 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. Same thing we have derived for the first stage. Okay. Now for the second stage, again following similar calculation, instead of V1 we have now V3 and instead of alpha 1 we have alpha 3. So for the second stage, delta VW2 can be written as 2 V3 cos alpha 3 minus VB. Same calculation. Okay. So you can write it as V3 cos alpha 3 plus V4 cos alpha 4. Then V4 cos alpha 4 you can just change back to following the same procedure, you can come back to this equation 2 V3 cos alpha 3 minus VB. Instead of V1 we have V3 and instead of alpha 1 we have alpha 3 for the second stage. Otherwise everything is similar. Okay. Now what is V3 cos alpha 3? We have assumed that V3 is equal to V2. Obviously this will be true because in the fixed place there is no change in velocity, and we have also assumed that alpha 3 equal to alpha 2. Okay. So V3 cos alpha 3 is equal to V2 cos alpha 2. So I can write delta VW as 2 V2 cos alpha 2 minus VB. Okay. 2 V2 cos alpha 2 minus VB. What is V2 cos alpha 2? This one. This is V2 cos alpha 2. So V2 cos alpha 2 can be written as, again doing the same stage. Okay. V2 cos alpha 2 is VR2 cos beta 2 minus VB, which is VR1 cos beta 1 minus VB, which is V1 cos alpha 1 minus 2 VB. Okay. So V2 cos alpha 2 is equal to V1 cos alpha 1 minus 2 VB. So we can replace that here. Delta VW2 is equal to 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus 2 VB, and already there was 1 minus VB present. So ultimately delta VW2 is 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus 3 VB. Okay. Which is obviously much less than delta VW1, which was 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus VB. Here it is 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus 3 VB. Okay. So we have written everything in terms of V1, alpha 1 and VB, which is useful for us because now we can do optimization also. So the total tangential thrust is equal to, per unit mass, it is equal to delta VW1 plus delta VW2. So you have to add these two, 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus 2 VB plus 2 V1 cos alpha 1 minus 6 VB. So it gives us 4 V1 cos alpha 1 minus 8 VB. Okay. 4 V1 cos alpha 1 minus 8 VB. So if you take 4 common, it is 4 into V1 cos alpha 1 minus 2 VB. Okay. This is the total tangential thrust per unit mass. If you multiply by mass flow rate, you get the tangential thrust PT. Okay. PT is equal to m dot s for V1 cos alpha 1 minus 2 VB. And then the work output is tangential thrust into blade velocity VB. So m dot s for V1 cos alpha 1 minus 2 VB into VB. Okay. So if you divide by the kinetic energy at the inlet of the entire system, half m dot s V1 square, we get efficiency as, so this 2 comes to the top, 2 into 4 into V1 cos alpha 1 minus 2 VB into VB by V1 square. Okay. So again defining rho, as the velocity ratio Vb by V1, we get eta d is equal to 8 rho cos alpha 1 minus 2 rho square. Okay, this is the efficiency. For maximum efficiency, you can again take a derivative of efficiency with respect to rho and equate it to 0. If you take a derivative of efficiency with respect to rho and equate it to 0, you will get cos alpha 1 minus 4 rho is equal to 0. Okay, or rho optimum is equal to cos alpha 1 by 4. Okay, just take a look at these values. So optimum rho is cos alpha 1 by 4. Okay, what was the previous optimum rho value that we had obtained? Anybody remember? It was cos alpha 1 by 2. Okay, for a single stage, rho optimum was cos alpha 1 by 2. Okay, but now for the Curtis turbine, the rho optimum is cos alpha 1 by 4. What does it mean in terms of the blade velocity? If V1 is fixed, V1 is very high for both the cases. So, will the blade velocities be similar for what is rho? Rho is Vb by V1, right? So, Vb by V1 is cos alpha 1 by 2 in one case, optimum value, in another case, cos alpha 1 by 4. So, what will be the blade velocity for a Curtis turbine as compared to a single stage turbine for the same value of V1? Yes, could not hear. It will be less, it will be half. Okay, so in this case, if it's 200 meter per second, in this case it will be 100 meter per second, because optimum value is cos alpha 1 by 4. So if V1 is fixed, V1 depends on the total enthalpy change in both cases. For a single stage turbine, it is the total, and V1 depends on the total enthalpy change in the turbine. For a Curtis turbine also, total enthalpy change occurs in the single nozzle. So V1 will be very large for the Curtis turbine also, because total enthalpy change occurs in a single nozzle. So V1 will be similar in both cases, single stage or Curtis turbine, means velocity component, but Vb will be much less. Vb will be half of that of Vb for the single stage, okay, at the optimum condition. So in that case, Curtis turbine still has beneficial, like it is still beneficial because you have less Vb. So again, less Vb means we can have less rotational speed or less mean diameter, or both. Okay, we can reduce the rotational speed and mean diameter. Now, if you replace the optimum value of rho in the efficiency expression, you will get the maximum efficiency. Maximum efficiency for this case also is cos square alpha 1. Okay, it is similar to the single stage turbine or the pressure compounded turbine. So maximum efficiency is similar for both cases. However, rho optimum is different. Okay. However, in actual cases, in real life scenario, Curtis turbine has more frictional losses because the velocities we are dealing with is higher. Okay. In Curtis turbine, the inlet velocity is V1. In a multi-stage pressure compounded turbine, the velocities are much less because we are dividing the enthalpy into multiple small stages. So we are dealing with less velocities. So in real life, the frictional losses are more in Curtis turbine. So although theoretically maximum efficiency is same for both cases, in real life the maximum efficiency is slightly lower for velocity compounded turbine as compared to pressure compounded turbine. But velocity compounded turbine has some other advantages we will see later. That's why it is still used. Okay, but efficiency is slightly lower in real life. But in theoretical calculation, efficiency is same for both pressure compounded turbine as well as velocity compounded turbine. Similarly, if we have 3 rows, for 2 rows, rho optimum is cos alpha 1 by 4. For 3 rows, it will be cos alpha 1 by 6. We will not do the calculation because we have to draw 3 velocity diagrams. In general, for n rows, we have rho optimum to be cos alpha 1 by 2n. Okay. So the further the higher the number of stages, lower will be the blade velocity. So blade velocity is lower than that for a single stage turbine. Okay. So that is where the Curtis turbine also becomes feasible. It is not as ridiculous as it sounds that only single stage we have very large velocity, then we are just dividing the kinetic energy into multiple stages. Although we have very large velocity, still the blade velocity is still lower. Okay, because optimum blade velocity ratio is different in this case. So we will stop here today.